Hi everyone, hope you all are good. We are here for grade 8 math. So you can find all the lessons on aplusstudents.com. You have to log in there using your email address and password is provided by the administrator. Then you have to select math from the subject tab. Scroll down to grade 8 and then click on view all lessons. So there you can find a list of the chapters. We're going to start with the chapter ratio, rates and proportions. The lessons we're going to cover today are equivalent ratios, compare ratios, unit rates, do the ratios form a proportion. So let's just start with the first lesson, that is equivalent ratios. So what do you know about the equivalent ratios? What are the equivalent ratios? Okay, so what do you know about the equivalent ratios? The ratio which we get by multiplying or dividing by same number to the given ratio is known as equivalent ratio, right? The ratio we get by multiplying or dividing by the same non-zero number to the two terms of the given ratio, right? Is called the equivalent ratios, right? Okay, so what is the equivalent ratio? If you are multiplying or dividing a ratio by the same number, right? The same non-zero number, then the two terms are the equivalent ratio. For example, you have 1 over 3, right? You're going to multiply both the fractions, both the numerator and denominator by 3. That would be then 3 times 1 is 3, 3 times 3 is 9. 1 by 3 and 3 by 9 are the equivalent ratios, right? You multiplied numerator and denominator by the same number, so that would be an equivalent ratio, right? You can multiply by any number. You can do 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 3 is 18. So 1 by 3, 3 by 9 and 6 by 18 are the equivalent ratios. For example, you have 8 over 16. You can divide them by 8. That would be then 1 over 2. So 8 by 16 and 1 over 2 are the equivalent ratios, right? So you are multiplying or dividing the fraction by the same number. This way you will get the equivalent ratios, right? Okay, let's just start with the equivalent ratios. Okay. Are these ratios equivalent? You are given two of the ratios. You need to see if they are equivalent. How do you see? Yes. 2 over 3 and 16 over 15. You are given two of the ratios. You need to see if they are equivalent. 2 over 3 and 6 over 15, I think. 16 over 15. Okay. So, how do you see if they are equivalent? Okay, that would be 2 over 3 equals 16 over 15, right? So just cross multiply them. Cross multiply means numerator of this fraction and denominator of this fraction. You need to do 2 times 15 and here you need to do 3 times 16, right? If they both have exactly same answer, 2 times 15 times 2 is 30, 16 times 3 is 48, they are not equal. That means 2 by 3 and 16 by 15 are not an equivalent fractions. No, not divide, right? This way you can find if they are equivalent. Just cross multiply them, equate them, cross multiply them. If they are equal, that means they are equivalent fractions. If they are not equal, that means they are not the equivalent fractions, right? So that means no, these two fractions are not equivalent, right? The correct option is no. Yes, you can note down the, okay. um yes, you can note down the example. Let me know when you are done. Okay, I'm waiting. Are you done? Okay, let's just do the next example. The next example is 3 over 5 and 12 over 10. Okay, 3 over 5 and 12, 10 over 12 over 10. Okay, okay, just equate them. 3 by 5 and 12 over 10. Cross multiply them. 3 times 10, 30, and 12 times 5 is 60. So they are not equal. So that means they are not equivalent ratios, right? The correct option is no, they are not equivalent. Okay, the next one is 5 over 1 divided 5 over 1 and 20 over 5. Are they these ratios equivalent? Yes or no? Which is the correct option? Are they equivalent? Yes or no? No, they are not equivalent. Very good. 4 over 3 and 20 over 12. Are they equivalent? No, they are not equivalent, right? The correct option is no, they are not equivalent. Okay, are these ratios equivalent? 1 over 4 and 5 over 20? Very good, they are equivalent. The correct option is yes. Are these ratios equivalent? 4 over 2 and 16 over 4? No, they are not equivalent, right? Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. So let's just move on to next lesson. The next lesson is equivalent ratios, word problems. You have to do the word problems on your own. The next one is compare ratios. So let's just start with the compare ratios, right? So how do you compare ratios? You can compare the ratios by converting them into percentage form. That would be then easy to compare the ratios, right? Let's just see the first example. A restaurant critic reviewed restaurants in Newberry and Bloomington. In Newberry, the critic gave 14 positive reviews and 20 negative reviews, right? So that means in Newberry it would be 14 over 20, right? 14 positive and 20 negative. In Bloomington, 7 of the reviews were positive and 10 of the reviews were negative. Okay, it is 7 over 10. Okay, 7 over 10. If you just look at these ratios, 14 over 20, 7 over 10, are they equivalent? Think and then answer. They are equivalent, right? If you divide this fraction by 2, you will have the same fraction. They are equivalent. But you can know by just divide them and multiply by 100. That would be easy to compare, right? Just divide them and multiply them by the 100. 40 over 20 times 100. 14 over 20 is 0. 0.7 and 0. 0.7 times 100. That is 70, right? So just do the same for the other one. That would be 70. You can see they both are exactly equivalent. So that means the ratios are equivalent, right? The correct option is neither. The ratios are equivalent. Got it? Okay, Todd's punch recipe calls for 9 liters of lemon lime soda and 6 liters of pineapple juice. Jared's punch recipe requires 6 liters of lemon lime soda and 4 liters of pineapple juice. Which recipe has higher ratio of lemon lime soda to pineapple juice? So which is the correct option? Divide them and multiply them by the 100. That's how you convert them into percentage form, right? And converting them into percentage form and then comparing is easy. 9 over 6 is 1.5. 1.5 times 100 is 150. Okay, then 6 over 4 is 1.5, and when multiplied by 100, that would be 1 over 150. So they both are exactly Equivalent, right? The correct option is neither they are equal. The ratios are equivalent. Got it? Okay, Kale and Travis are photographers who specialize in portraits. Last year, Kale photographed 14 individuals and 21 families, and Travis photographed 19 individuals and 25 families, who photographed a lower ratio of the individual to families. So, which is the correct option? So, if you think logically, who photographed lower? 14 to 21, 19 to 25. That means scale did lower, right? You can also find the by multiplying by 100 the percentage form. It would be 14 over 21, that would be 66%. 19 over 25, that would be 76%. So who had less? Obviously Kale has the. Okay, so the correct option is option number 1. During a road trip, Pablo stopped at two rest stops. In a parking lot of the first rest stop, he counted 42 cars to 34 trucks. At the second shop, he counted 46 cars to 38 trucks. At which rest stop Pablo counted a lower ratio of cars to trucks? So, which is the correct option? Which one is less? 42 divided by 34 times 100 and 46 divided by 38 times 100, that would be 123. Let's just do this one. 46 over 38 times 100, that is 121. So who had the lower ratio? That means at the second stop he had the. Very good. The second rest stop had the lowest ratio. Okay, last month Vincent spent 16 hours watching TV and 12 hours reading. The same month, Ronald spent 11 hours watching TV and 10 hours reading. Who had a higher ratio of time spent watching TV to time spent reading? Which is the correct option? Which is the correct one? Vincent had the higher ratio of time spent, right? The correct option is option number 1. Very good. Okay, Cederberg Public Middle Schools Orchestra had 10 violin players and 18 flute players. Lenberry Middle Schools, on the other hand, had 5 violins and 9 flutes players. Which middle school had a lower ratio of violin to flute players? Which is the correct option? Which is the correct option? They both are the equivalent fractions, isn't it? They both are equivalent. Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. Let's just move on to next lesson. The next lesson is unit rate. Unit rate means finding the cost of just one thing, right? For example, you bought four pencils, right? The cost of the four pencils is $32. For example, pennies, whatever. You have to calculate the cost of one pencil. How do you calculate? How do you calculate the cost of one pencil? Yes, you can divide, right? 32 divided by 4, and that means 8. So the cost of one pencil is 8. So basically, the unit price means the price of one thing, right? Unit rate is per one unit of something, right? The cost of unit means one. So the cost of one thing, right? Okay, for example, 200 sausages were eaten by 50 people. 200 sausages by 50 people, right? You need to find how much sausages single person eat, or you need to calculate this unit rate. How do you calculate? You need to divide 200 by 50. That means per people or single people have four sausages, right? Okay, let's just start with the practice questions. So 32 pages in 4 days. How many pages per day? Which is the correct option? Which option is the correct one? Very good. That would be 8 pages per day. You have to divide 32 by 4 to calculate the unit price. So that is 8. 39 seats in 3 rows. So how many seats per row? That would be 39 divided by 3 is 13 seats per row, isn't it? 45 liters in 3 minutes. So how many liters per minute? Very good. That would be 15 liters per minute. The correct option is 15, right? 45 newspapers in 3 piles. So how many newspaper per pile? Very good. 15 newspaper per pile. 22 chairs at 2 tables. How many chairs per table? Very good. That would be 11 chairs per table, right? 24 passengers on 2 buses. So how many passengers per bus? That will be 12 passenger per bus, right? 28 kilometers in 2 minutes. So how many kilometers per minute? Very good. That would be 14 kilometers per minute. 44 laps in 4 days. So how many laps per day? Very good. That would be 11 laps per day, right? Okay, you can complete the lesson by yourself later today. The next one is do the ratios form a proportion. 14 over 7 and 2 over 1. Do 14 by 7 and 2 over 1 form a proportion. You have to make their denominators same, right? When you make their denominators same, if they have their numerators also same, that means that are they form a proportion, right? So 14 over 7 and 2 over 1. Make the smaller denominator equal to greater one, right? So that means you need to multiply this fraction by 7. Just do 2 times 7, 1 times 7. When you multiplied this fraction by 7, that is exactly, they both are exactly same, right? By making their denominator same, if you get the same numerator also, that means they are the ratios form proportion, right? 6 by 18 and 1 by 3 forms a proportion. Okay, 6 over 18 and 1 over 3. You need to make this equal 18, right? 3 times 6 is 18. Multiply this fraction by 6. See, both the fractions are now equal. That means they form a, yes, they form a proportion, right? Okay, do the ratios 2 by 1 and 16 by 8 form a proportion? Yes or no? Do they form a proportion? Yes, they form a proportion. The correct option is yes. Do 2 by 1 and 16 by 10 form a proportion? Which is the correct option? Yes or no? No, they do not form a proportion, right? When making their denominator same, their numerators are still different, so they do not form a proportion. The correct option is no. Do the ratios 16 by 8 and 4 by 2 form a proportion? Yes or no? The correct option is yes, they form a proportion, right? The correct option is yes. Do 1 by 3 and 4 by 12 form a proportion? Yes, they form the proportion. The correct option is yes. Do the ratios 14 by 7 and 2 by 1 form a proportion? Yes or no? The correct option is yes, they form a proportion. Do the ratios 2 by 1 and 10 by 5 form a proportion? Correct option is yes, they form a proportion. Do the ratios 3 by 2 and 8 by 10 form a proportion? Yes or no? The correct option is no, they do not form a proportion, right? Do the ratios 18 by 4 and 9 by 2 form a proportion? Yes, they form a proportion, right? The correct option is yes. Do the ratios 10 by 20 and 1 by 2 form a proportion? The correct option is yes, they form a proportion. The correct option is yes. Okay, we are done with the lesson. So we were working on grade 8 math. The chapter we're working on is ratios, proportions, and percents. The lessons we have covered today are equivalent ratios, word problems, compare ratios, word problems, unit rates, and do the ratios form a proportion, right? So please make sure before the next session you can complete all the practice questions for the lessons we did today. So if you need more help with any of the lesson, you can contact any tutor on the Skype. They are available from Monday to Friday, 5 to 9, right? So if you need more help with any of the lesson, you can contact any tutor on the Skype. They are available from Monday to Friday, 5 to 9, right? Or either you can join me in the interactive session that would be daily from 4 to 5 and from 9 to 10, right? If you have any questions, you can please ask. No questions? Okay, then that's all for today. See you in the next session. Bye, everyone.